Hi, my name is Carmen, and I am an early childhood special education teacher, a life and ADHD coach, and I'm the host of this podcast, Authentically ADHD. I created this podcast to help anyone wondering if they have ADHD, people who have been diagnosed for a while and want some more support and community. I'm here to bring you the latest research on ADHD and neurodiversities while we talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of ADHD. Are you ready? Let's get started. Hi, my friend, and welcome back to the podcast. I'm so happy that you clicked play on this episode. Whether you have ADHD, you are a parent of an ADHDer, a teacher, a friend, a family member, etc. There will be some great information to help you understand and hopefully give you ideas on how to help your ADHDer in whatever phase of life they are in right now. Because that's our topic today, ADHD through the lifespan from an undiagnosed/late diagnosed perspective, with some research and others' experiences in here with research-based ways to support each phase of life with ADHD. There's a little more anecdotal, story-like, and examples given more than researched ways to support your child, friend, etc. with ADHD, because it would have made this episode really, really long. It's not a short topic, so let's get started. So let's start with the young child, around 3 to 5 years old. So, ADHD is a neurodevelopmental disorder that we are born with. So, if you have ADHD now, you always did. Unless you were involved in some sort of accident or something that caused a brain injury, which resulted in ADHD, you have it from birth. Now, just because 3 to 5-year-olds have ADHD, they may have it, it does not mean that they can be diagnosed. It's legal to diagnose children at the age of 5 right now, but it's really about the way that ADHD presents. And because ADHD has a lot to do with an underdeveloped prefrontal cortex, it's incredibly, incredibly difficult to diagnose young children because prefrontal cortex is the last thing to develop in all humans. So young children have underdeveloped prefrontal cortexes already. I mean, think about it. 3 to 5-year-olds are chatty. They're impulsive. They have very short amounts of attention and are pretty full of energy. And this can look like ADHD, especially if you already have experience with ADHD. But here's the thing. Your child may just be a child. Your child may just be a little bit hyperactive. Or your child might have ADHD. The good news is that if there are symptoms that are super obvious, meaning that they have a pretty severe case of ADHD, they will start to hinder their ability to be productive at school and or at home. Some examples include feeling emotions that are way out of proportion to the situation. So like 30-minute tantrums that they cannot calm down from, or just outbursts of anger that seem to come out of nowhere. And the inability to calm down is really a key part of that. And then another one is nearly always being restless. Like they cannot sit still and focus on any activity for more than like 2 to 3 minutes. Like even stuff they're interested in. They talk and or fidget a lot more than other children that are their same age, meaning that they are a little bit more of a fearless person, fearless child. So they may engage in activities that are not safe. They may not have safety awareness. They also may show aggression towards peers and caregivers. This, again, goes along with kind of that emotional dysregulation that we would see in a small child to kind of start to spot that ADHD. Okay, because Sometimes ADHD is going to present in a person in an inattentive way. And with little kids, you can't really tell. I mean, if they're daydreaming, that's what little kids do. Now, these examples don't mean that your child for sure has or does not have ADHD. Again, I am not a doctor. I am a coach and a researcher and a podcaster and a teacher. At the age that I teach, which is 3 to 5, it is super difficult, especially if your child's ADHD prevents in an inattentive, daydreamy, and head in the clouds type of way. Those behaviors still are not in the DSM-5 as signs and symptoms of ADHD. Neither is emotional dysregulation, okay? Like the inability to calm down or even learn about what they're feeling, that is a big key. From my experiences as a teacher, because I don't remember my preschool age years, parents have a hard time with the whole ADHD diagnosis thing because they assume their child will need to now be medicated. Now, while that may be a good tool that your child may need to use, most doctors will not start with medication. Most doctors will do a treatment plan, and treatment means a lot more than just medication. That's just one tool in the toolbox. Treatment also involves therapies like behavioral therapy, cognitive therapy, occupational therapy, sometimes physical therapy, play therapy. These avenues help teach kids those social skills and ways to handle issues like sharing, waiting for a turn, speaking over people, and being safe in their actions and surroundings, being respectful, and learning how to identify and regulate their emotions. ADHD coaching is also another avenue you and your child could try as well. It works because it helps us understand why we do the things we do and how to stop. That's why I'm a part of the Focused membership by none other than Kristen Carter of the I Have ADHD podcast. If you want to get money off of joining, head to the link in my show notes. We both save money if you use that link, so it's a win-win for everybody. Now, when children reach school age, now we're talking, that's 7 to about 12, 13 years old. So sorry if you hear the washer in the background. I was not going to stop recording just for that. So, signs and symptoms may be easier to spot now that the kids have, they're at an age where they may have more responsibility. They may have homework, chores, peers to keep up with. They may have started their first relationship. Now, for me, I always remember feeling different than my peers. The ability to full on literally escape into daydreams so vivid that I wouldn't even hear the teacher unless they got really, really loud. My presentation was mostly inattentive growing up as a kid. I did struggle in school. I didn't have many friends. I had friends, but I didn't have many friends. I made careless mistakes. I did my homework, but I was the kid that tended to lose it a lot. I would never had it because I did it and I swore up and down that I did it. I remember I had a lot of emotions. I cried about everything. I was a terrible test taker, so I was categorized as the chatty Cathy daydreamer who was a CD student, and some other things, some other signs and symptoms that can kind of pop up during this stage is those overly emotional outbursts, again, disproportionate to the situation. So you lost something and you can't calm your 12-year-old down or your 11-year-old down because they cannot find this thing, right? So emotional outbursts that are disproportionate to the event. And then difficulty sustaining attention in play, tasks, and conversations. Trouble listening closely when being spoken to directly. Seemingly run by a motor, so they are unable to follow directions, sit still, and after the first or second direction, they may start to oppositionally and defiantly not follow the direction. Finding it very difficult to start and follow through with chores, tasks, homework, etc. Finding it hard to go to bed and very difficult to wake up in the morning. Difficulty waiting, taking turns, and talking over other people or interrupting people in conversation. Inability to stay seated without fidgeting or squirming. Excessive talking or just fidgeting in general. And then another one that people don't really talk about a lot is clumsiness. Running into things, falling and tripping a lot. ADHD is also it's related to spatial awareness. So we don't always see correctly. We don't always see like what we're walking towards or into correctly. So that is why if you have ADHD and you find that you walk into doorways, nightstands, and things like that, it's spatial awareness, and it has to do with, our brains being different. Difficulty organizing belongings. Avoiding tasks that involve cognitive energy, so thinking, anything that involves cleaning, unable to motivate self to start, unable to engage in quiet and relaxing activities. Now, that is not a full list, but there are some of the most common signs and symptoms in school-aged children. These signs also need to have been present for at least 6 months before the age of 12, and in 2 or more settings. So at home and at school, or at home and at other people's houses, or at other people's houses and at school, or everywhere. Really, the ADHD is going to show up everywhere. Some things that can help kids at this age are schedules, reward systems, and things like that. And just really helping them learn about ADHD and their own ADHD. I really want you to remember that ADHD does not mean that your child has to be hyper, okay? It's called an inattentive presentation. It's full of inattention, people-pleasing, chatting, and it's usually missed, especially in young girls. Here's the thing about age 12. Research shows that people with ADHD are about 20% more likely to become addicted to substances when they are not treated before or by age 12. That percentage might even be higher, but this research could really help with the drug issues that we have right now in the United States. Personally, after all the research that I've been through and the things that I have listened to and heard, I believe that probably almost half of the people that are in the jails right now wouldn't be if they were treated for ADHD as children. So I thank God that I didn't get caught up in too many substances as a kid or as a young adult, but I always felt like I was walking through sand all the time, like wading through water. Everything seemed so much harder for me than it was for my peers. And that's because it was. I was awkward. I couldn't pay attention. Verbal instructions were my enemy, and it didn't matter where the teacher sat me. I made new friends, talking to everyone and anyone. And I also had no interest in science, math, or gym. Yes, I almost failed gym. I liked reading, but it was still difficult for me because of how long it took me to read. But I could hyperfocus into it because I was interested. See, ADHD brains are very interest-based. So school-aged or 7 to 12 years old, they start to show more signs with all of the schoolwork. Their impulsivity, not completing chores at home, having emotional and mental kind of breakdowns bigger than that of their neurotypical peers, not being able to identify and process the emotions, needing extra support to process the emotions. You may notice or be told by teachers that you talked too much or your child talks too much, they can't sit still, that you're not living up to your potential, that you're lazy, that you don't try hard enough, that you are too much dramatic or over emotional or even under emotional. You may have even masked and ended up being labeled as the quiet one because you were scolded for talking too much, or being too loud. Basically, this school-aged area is where a lot of the symptoms will show up, and they also can be missed because it presents differently in each individual person. You could be impulsive and hyper, or a daydreamer who is forgetful, or all 4 things. The big reason that I'm talking about these labels is because we end up starting to take them on and believe these things as we grow up, and we believe that they are part of who we are, that we are just lazy, forgetful, and that we don't pay attention. We believe we are faulty human beings when really we have ADHD. We have low functioning executive functions, meaning we as people struggle in varying degrees with task initiation, following directions, regulating our emotions, switching tasks, transitioning throughout the day, remembering basically anything, processing what someone is saying in order to respond, procrastination, distraction, boredom, self reflection, self awareness, and overall self regulation. We also literally do not develop the skill to feel the passing of time in our brains. ADHD brains are, by definition, time blind. We can get involved in a task of any type of interest of ours and not feel any time passing by, contributing to why we are almost always late and how we can sometimes get a ton done in a short amount of time. But we ignored all of our basic needs to do so in order to get all of that done. That's what's unseen and behind the scenes in hyperfocus. Now, as we're heading into the teen and pre-adult years, emotions grow. Organization gets harder because life wants more from us in high school and in college. The struggles of becoming a teenager, dealing with hormones, new school, expectations, making new friends while being ADHD is very hard. I was undiagnosed, so I didn't receive any help with my ADHD like the kids who are diagnosed and have individual education plans. I went to a huge school, so the teachers, again, just put me in the lazy, chatty, forgetful category and didn't really realize that what I had was ADHD. It's a deficiency in executive functions, and they all overlap. ADHD brains have to try 3 times harder at literally functioning as a person. We have to do this in our relationships, at school, in our careers, in our families, and pretty much every other aspect of our lives. Really think about it, because this time in a person's life, this pre-adulthood, getting your first job, making friends that could last a lifetime, going to events, and being responsible for the organization of your stuff and your time. If a person gets all the way through high school and maybe even college diagnosed without even just understanding ADHD or is undiagnosed, a lot of these very serious things can go terribly wrong. We have a hard time managing and regulating. So, this is one of the big reasons that ADHD goes hand in hand with anxiety and depression. Without help and guidance, we as ADHDers may drop out of high school, be unable to complete college. And if we do, we most likely developed and still use unhealthy coping skills that really hurt our health, like ending up in burnout cycles, isolating, and or ending up with CPTSD in addition to our ADHD because we tried to be neurotypical when we were neurodiverse. ADHD in adulthood is literally just as hard, if not harder. We are twice as likely to lose jobs or quit. We have a hard time with money management, so living on our own is hard. We never develop a sense of passing time, so we have that time blindness. We have a hard time completing tasks and generally being on time, paying bills on time, and those need to be paid. And then there is basic self-care, like making sure you go to the dentist yearly so you don't end up like me, going when you're in pain and coming out of it needing to do, $3,000 worth of work because you put off going to the dentist for your yearly checkups. It's all part of ADHD. What I would really, really love for you to take away from this episode is awareness, to learn about yourself or the person in your life who has or may have ADHD. There are so many resources out there, and ADHD is one of the most treatable mental health disorders out there. So I invite you to learn about it. Talk to doctors, therapists, or people that you know who have ADHD. because we're just different. We're not less. We do work hard, and we're empathetic people who will definitely try our best for you. All right, my friends, that was as fast as I could go through ADHD through the life cycles. I know that there weren't many tips, but I hope that you could take those signs and symptoms and kind of flip them so that you can get some tips out of them. That's all I have for now. We will talk soon. Stay authentic, my friends. Speaking of extra supports, I just wanted to tell you all that I've updated my Patreon page to include all of the resources that I've really ever made to be held in one place. Just head to my show notes. The VIP members do get a little extra, but you can also purchase like my brand new Ultimate ADHD Journal and Planner, which I've been using for the past year. That has worked. Nothing is priced over $10, and everything is at least 50 to 100 pages that you can download and print. You can get it binded and sent to you, or you can just read it off your screen and use notebook paper. So if you want or need any type of that kind of extra support, just head to my show notes and click the Patreon link to join. I hope to see you in there.